Hi, I'm Doug Reeves, and I'd like to talk to you about one of the central challenges that every leader, every educator faces, and that is too many standards, not enough time. When we're faced with the overwhelming burden of standards, we need to first of all understand that there was no malice in how the standards were created. People come to the state departments all over the country and say, here's what every fifth grader should know. Here's what every ninth grader should be able to do. And that makes sense as long as all of your students only need 1 year of learning. But even before the pandemic of 2020, we had students who needed more than 1 year of learning, and now we certainly do. So if you've got students who need more than 1 year of learning, a standards-based system premised on only 1 year of learning is fundamentally flawed. Now you can talk real fast, you can have an 18-hour school day, maybe a 13-month school year, or you can embrace power standards. Power standards represents that subset of standards that are most important for your students to be successful. It's respectful of teacher time, and it's fundamentally an accurate, innovative, and successful way to help students succeed. Now we know that we've got too many standards in too little time, but a lot of people will say, well, I'll help you prioritize. Friends, beware of the fake power standards. That's when somebody says, well, we'll give you priority standards, but wink, wink, you still have to cover it all. We'll give you essential standards, but wink, wink, if it's on the test and you didn't cover it, it's your fault. Power standards are explicit. We must identify these things where students will be successful, and we must equally identify some things that we're not going to address. It's the only way that we can succeed at every level. So what are the characteristics of power standards? First, they have leverage. That means that this standard has an influence on many others. For example, the evidence from Professor Stephen Graham, myself, and many others say that when students engage in nonfiction writing, writing to describe, to compare, to evaluate, to persuade, when they do nonfiction writing, it not only helps their writing ability, it improves reading comprehension, improves mathematics, science, social studies. Nonfiction writing is one of the greatest levers that there is, and I work in districts where every class, K through 12, every class, every subject engages in nonfiction writing at least once a month. It's great for students, and it's great for all of us because it shows that all of us, irrespective of our subject matter, are committed to student success. Secondly, they have endurance. That means you don't just sit and look at your own standards for your grade level, but we identify those things that recur again and again. For example, the requirement that students engage in claim, evidence, and reasoning happens in elementary school and middle school and high school, and of course continues well into college. That's an example of something that has endurance. And essentiality. What's really most important for the next grade level? Friends, I see my colleagues who are fifth grade teachers working so hard saying, Doug, I've got to get them ready for middle school. And I ask them, have you asked a middle school teacher? Because there's not a middle school teacher who would ever say to a fifth grade teacher, the key to success is frantic coverage of everything. They'll give them a list that is brief and focused. My eighth grade friends work themselves to death saying, Doug, I've got to get them ready for high school. And I ask them, have you asked a high school teacher? Because there's no high school teachers that will say covering every eighth grade standard is the key. In fact, when we listen to each other, we can resolve the standards paradox, which is there are too many standards, but also too few. You know, your jurisdiction doesn't have a standard called organizing a project in two component parts. Your jurisdiction doesn't have a standard called keep an assignment notebook correctly. You don't have a standard called ask for help before it's a crisis. But every time I listen to you, those are the sorts of things you say are most important for students to succeed. So power standards mean we focus on a few things. And one final thing. At Creative Leadership Solutions, our definition of power standards is not merely a list. It is a through line from standards to assessments to scoring rubrics all the way through to real student work. You are not done with your effort on power standards until you have identified what actual student work represents. And I'm agnostic about what you call it. You may want to say, here's A level work, here's B level work, here's C level work. Show me the difference. Here's exemplary work, here's proficient work, here's progressing work. Show me the difference. You're not done until you have actual student work. And at Creative Leadership Solutions, we make sure that power standards is not just the identification of standards, but shows you, shows teachers, and shows students exactly what that means.